How's it going, everybody? And welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. This is the show where you can ask me anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics, and no one's going to judge you or roast you or debate you. What's up, Kim Buckman? What's up, D. Scott? Great to see you guys. Everybody's welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. We don't do roasting or debating or judging people here. So you can ask a question, even if it makes it clear that you are somebody on the right or the left. No one's going to call you a fascist, or no one's going to call you a cuck or a libtard. So just go ahead and throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. What's up, Muzz King? Great to see you again as well. So yeah, no such thing as a dumb question. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. Kim Buckman says, I had a question, I forgot it, fudge. You didn't have to tell anybody that, Kim Buckman. Let's see here. What was I saying? Yeah, I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, because there's all these abbreviations and words that people throw around as though everybody's supposed to know what these words mean already. What's up, GP? Great to see you again. So yeah, if you don't know what things like reconciliation are, or a spending bill, or the filibuster, or continuing resolution, and if you don't know who any of these people are, it can be really difficult to be a part of the conversation. So what's up, Triska? Great to see you again as well. So go ahead and throw your questions about politics in the chat. We will get to talking about them. I don't know if any of you guys saw that news story about how we now have evidence that Elon Musk engaged in voter fraud in Georgia in the 24 election. So, every accusation is confession, as they say. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. We don't judge here. We don't harass. We don't bully. We don't fight with people. We don't do debates. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. Kim Buckman says, did you watch Trump throw a tantrum about the tariffs? I did not. I tried to watch him as little as possible. It's better for my mental health. All right, let's see here. Excellent. Triska says, I didn't. I heard Trump say he won the tariffs. He said that he won affordability. So it's just like, yeah. He's a liar. He's a con artist. He's gonna say whatever he thinks is gonna. He tries to speak into reality things, and that's not how anything works, unfortunately. All right. Bruce says, are the tariffs working? I mean, it depends on what you mean by working. Bruce, care to elaborate? Let's talk about it. All right, everybody else, welcome. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. I want to say thank you to everybody who helped me reach my first gift goal of the day. Alrighty, let's see here. Setting up a new one. Dean Roses. Okay. All right, let's get back into these. Question. Faceman says, does Trump have any other avenues to implement tariffs? Not that I know of. It's a little outside of my area of expertise, though. Bruce says, is there an increase in revenue to the government? Yes, but that is coming at our cost. Like, we're paying for the tariffs. Okay. What a weird thing that just happened. All right. Peter says, what is your political stance? I am a progressive Democrat. Faceman already did that one. All right. GSTM says, should the workers or the state own the means of production? The workers. Right now, the billionaire class owns the means of production, and it should be the workers. What's up, Lauren? Great to see you again. These comments are coming fast and furious. I'm on a new setup right now, so I am still getting used to everything. Luke Rich says, who was the head of state in Cambodia in 1803? I don't know, Luke. It's true that you can ask me anything that you like about politics, but I might not know the answer. Okay, scrolling down. Gen X Dad says, why didn't Biden prosecute Trump for the Epstein files crimes? So a couple of things about that, Gen X Dad. Number one, the Democratic Party did try to release that information in 2019, 2020, and 2023. If you want more details on that, send me a DM. I'll shoot it all over to you. If you want to know why Biden didn't prosecute, it's because all of those documents were tied up in ongoing legislation around Ghislaine Maxwell and some of Epstein's victims. Additionally, the FBI at the time was being run by a guy named Christopher Wray, who was appointed and sat by Donald Trump and was a Republican. So if you really want to know why nothing happened with the people in the files, maybe you want to talk to Republican Trump appointed Christopher Wray about that. John Jones says Trump is innocent. Why would he be prosecuted? He's not innocent, John Jones. Eli says, you like Trump. No, I do not. Gen X says, not sealed, common lie. Well, seems like you don't really give a shit about facts. Seems like you just want to spread your own misinformation, Gen X dad. So we do not truck with that kind of activity here on my live stream. Eli says, I love Trump. Good for you. Peter says, I am a conservative and a nationalist. I identify with the America First movement. Okay. John Jones says that he's blocked me. Cool. Thank you. You could just keep that information to yourself enough time. Nobody really gives a shit. So yeah, Peter, are there any things that Trump and the Republican Party are doing these days that you have a problem with? For example, do you have a problem with the fact that they've been really shady about the information that's in the Epstein files? Do you have a problem with us invading Venezuela or bombing Iran? Do you have a problem with ICE detention camps and ICE agents murdering people? Let me know. Fletch Lives Again says, thoughts on the $10 billion to Trump's Board of Peace? It is just Trump stealing our tax dollars, taking it from the Treasury, putting it into his pocket. Georgia Warder said, should Washington State ban Andrew Rivers? No, unfortunately, we have freedom of Andrew Rivers in this country. Lewis Wilcox says, have you heard how Prince Andrew was arrested in relation to Epstein? I did, and I think it's pretty pathetic that they are seeing consequences in other countries for this information, but not in our country. Peter says, I have problems with the Epstein stuff and AIPAC and many other things. How do you feel about the fact that there are a bunch of Democrats that are voting against sending more money and weapons to Israel, but no Republicans who are doing that? Nathan Turley says, can other countries hold Trump accountable? Not really. Like, there's the International Criminal Court, but America doesn't really recognize their authority. He would have to go there to those countries in order for him to see some accountability. Okay, Seth Johnson says, do you think Harris would be doing a better job than Trump? 100%, absolutely. I actually have a list. Let's go through it. Renee Good and Alex Preddy would still be alive. There are thousands of people who are being illegally detained and tortured in ICE prison camps that would not be. The fishermen who were completely innocent and were just fishing off the coast of Venezuela would still be alive. There are tens of thousands of veterans who would still be working their jobs in the government. There would be farmers who are not currently going bankrupt because of tariffs and mass deportations. And there would be 600,000 people who would be alive because USAID funding had not been cut. Excellent question so far. All right. John Abbott says, but freedom of Andrew Rivers must be included. Freedom from Andrew Rivers. That's really funny. Pokemon says, you look like Harry Mack. Is that an attractive person? I sure hope so. Zulu says that both parties take money from AIPAC when we vote. So I think there's a big difference between taking money from AIPAC and doing what AIPAC wants you to do, Zulu. At the moment, there are a record number of Democrats who are voting against sending more money and weapons to Israel, and every single Republican is still voting to send money and weapons to Israel. So I think if AIPAC and Israel are your main issues, then you should vote for the Democratic Party. Pokenpole says, he's the rapping dude on YouTube. I would say so. All right, sweet. Yeah, I'll take it, man. What's up, Z Garde? Great to see you again. All right, let's see here. Bruce says, Obama demanded to get health care or you would be fined. Biden demanded to get vaccinated or be fired. I don't know if Biden demanded everybody get vaccinated or be fired, but it is true that there was a fine for not getting health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. Honestly, I don't really see what the issue is with that. Lanu says, Democrats are still right-wing, though. I don't buy that at all. I know that is a common phrase, that is a common narrative that people bandy about on the internet. I just don't believe it. Peter says, again, I have problems with the current Republican Party and how it is represented. Okay, well then do you still consider yourself a conservative nationalist and a Republican? Nathan Turley says, will Tallarico turn establishment if he wins Texas? What's your opinion? I do not believe that he will. He seems like a pretty good guy to me. He seems completely sincere, so I'm down with Tallarico. Flitter says, the Democratic Party is nowhere near radical enough. For you, Flitter, but for some people, it's too radical. I think that one of the things that we need to do as citizens of America is to recognize that there are 330 million people in this country and not everybody agrees with us. So if we do the work and try to get our candidates elected, but then they don't, then we have to recognize that we lost. So that goes for if you are a conservative Democrat and you wanted a more conservative Democrat to win the nomination, but then a more radical Democrat won the nomination, stuff like that. A Schwollenpekka says, what American political party was on the side of slavery? At the time, it was the Democratic Party, but the ideology of the political parties in regards to race switched in the 1960s and 70s. Kat says, healthcare isn't radical. Completely agree with that. Zigarde says, I would love more socialist policies. Me too, but not everybody agrees with us. Zulu says, what do you think about the Iran war? I mean, are you talking about the war that Trump is currently trying to start with Iran? The Victor Mike says, watch the speed. He's imposing different style tariffs and leaving the current ones in place. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't got the up to the minute information on that. GSTM says, you want to confiscate private companies by force to give them to their workers? No, I do not. I want to incentivize companies to be employee owned. I want to punish companies for taking too much of the profit that their workers are creating with taxes that then go to pay for programs that make everybody else's lives easier. A Schwollenpekka says the switch never happened. That is a lie. And so you are out of here. Congratulations. Okay, scrolling down to the bottom. Bruce says, you don't seem an issue with being fined or fired from your job. Fascist mindset. I completely disagree with that. So it's not being fined, it's being taxed. And if you decide that you are not going to have health care, then you are a danger to your community because that means that you are potentially going to be a vector for disease because you're not engaging in things like preventative care. So yeah, I don't know. The government has the right to tax you. That is part of our Constitution. And so, again, I don't think that Biden said you have to get vaccinated or you're fired. So it doesn't really seem like you're listening to me, Bruce. It seems like you're just here to start a fight. Flamingo Mo says, do these people care about the government takeover of companies proposed by Trump? Yeah, a lot of people who seem to have a problem with Democratic overreach don't really have a problem with Trump now owning half of Intel and shit like that. Nico Dem Hope says, do you approve American soldiers going to Iran if it means freeing the people from tyranny? I do not. We have seen this play out time and time again. Every time America gets caught up in regime change wars, it ends up becoming a massive fucking quagmire that costs thousands, millions of lives and hundreds of billions of dollars. So 2 thumbs down on that. What we should be doing is supporting the revolution that is happening within Iran as opposed to trying to enforce our will on Iran. All right. Alex Chandler says, do you think the two-party system will ever go away, or do you think the feds will keep playing us like puppets? I don't think that all the feds play us like puppets. I think that I don't care for that narrative that like it's all the same no matter who's in charge. And thank you to all of my contributors who helped me reach my second gift goal of the day. The new setup that I have is not letting me see exactly who is contributing, unfortunately. I would love to thank you all individually. All right. And then the pin button should show up. Where are you? Is it pinned? I don't think it is pinned. I forget what I was talking about before we got into the whole gift goal business. Okay. Lewis Wilcox says, in the USA, what be the third biggest party then? I don't know if there is. Peter says, can you answer me next, please? Where's your question? I do not see your question, my guy. There it is. Good Lord. There's a real delay on this shit now. Okay. You are pinned now, I believe, right? All right, sweet. Okay, Lanu says, it's so crazy to me that Americans are so scared of socialism and say the Democrats are too socialist. I mean, yeah, but you forget that we had decades of smear campaigns against the words socialist and communist. You forget that we are suffering under the yoke of billionaire propaganda campaigns. Oscar says, do you think the Soviets did a good job at solving the housing crisis left by the Tsar? No, I do not. Z Garde says, people lose their jobs under capitalism, but social safety nets wouldn't make it life or death. That is 100% accurate. Blanca Falcon says, hello. Hello back to you. Space Plum says, Trump lost his tariffs bullshit. Yay. Peter, you told me to answer your question, but then I don't see any question here. Alex Chandler says, if things were resolved in the country, what would the politicians give false promises too. I mean, there's always things to be solved because the country is always changing. I also, again, I completely disagree with this narrative that politicians are all liars and they're all just in it for themselves. Like, there are definitely politicians that are like that, but if you paint them all with the same brush, you give cover to the worst ones. Lewis Wilcox says Trump and your media is trying to make a third Red Scare, it seems. 100% accurate, Lewis Wilcox. Peter says, I mean statements. Sorry. Again, but I don't see your statement, Peter. Exo says, capitalism built the United States to what we are today. I completely disagree with that, Exo, because we've had communist and socialist principles in America since America was incepted. And so you could just as easily say that the socialist post office or the socialist military or communist companies like Publix or Bob's Red Mill are what built America. Yo says, is Amy Coney Barrett now based? No, she's completely full of shit. I am Dola says, do people that run these lives just have nobody to talk to IRL? No, I had a really nice conversation with your mom last night. Nathan Turley says, do you think Trump will end affairs with other countries now that his tariffs have been shot down? No, I mean, he wants, his goal is always to increase his own wealth and, to increase his own power. And so he is going to continue engaging with other countries. He just no longer has that to wield as a weapon. Exo says, I'm talking about economically. How could you disagree with me? What do you mean economically? Exo. What was the other thing that you said, Exo? What am I responding to here? Do I disagree? Capitalism. Oh, economically. No, again, your iPhone was made because of research that was paid for with taxes. That is socialism. So a lot of the advances that we think that created this country are inherently socialist because they were built on the backs of research that was funded through our taxes. Right. Peter says, are you able to see what I am typing? I am, but sometimes TikTok will mute certain comments depending on what the words are in it. So maybe try to rephrase the thing. Let's see here. Flonk Sauce, great to see you again. AJ Din says, will the U.S. strike Iran or nothing ever happens? It is impossible to say with Trump because he has the memory of a goldfish. So, yeah, I mean, if he's trying to distract from the Epstein files, maybe he will. I don't have any faith that he's going to do it in a way that is productive or good for the people of Iran. Lauren says, did you watch Trump's speech today? He said he's enacting global tariffs now. Oh, sweet. I can't wait for the Supreme Court to knock those down. Oh, excuse me, everybody. Jet Set says, what is your articulative meaning and purpose of your political stance that supersedes others? I don't really know what that means. I'm a progressive Democrat. Chris says, what do you think about the current Israeli government ideologically? I don't know if there is a worse type of government than what Netanyahu and his accolades are doing in Israel to their surrounding countries at the moment. Beaverino, and have been for a while. Beaverino says, no news about Venezuela. Very strange. I mean, it seems like the Trump administration is working with Maduro's former vice president, now president. So Ivan Cisco says, Trump said he will do the global tariff and he will do it without congressional approval. Cool. Let's see how that goes. Lauren said, he said they didn't tell him what he couldn't do with the money he's already stolen from us. Well, again, he's a liar. Sonia DeBoss says, is the only reason Trump is not being questioned is because he's the president. Also because Congress is in the hands of the Republican Party, and the Republican Party does not believe in holding their own presidents to any kind of standard or laws. All right, 7882 says, opinions on the goings on in Cuba. I don't know enough about it. I worry for the people of Cuba. It really seems like they're struggling. Alex Chandler says, at least North Korea is a dictator over just his people. I suppose, that is a silver lining if you think about it. Zulu says, what's America's interest in the Iran war? Oil, expanding our reach in the Middle East, making money for military contractors like Raytheon. Alex Chandler says it was a comment in regards to Israel. Netanyahu. Yes, gotcha. Chris says, do you think Trump is compromised by Mossad through Epstein? Potentially. I mean, I don't know if Trump feels like there's anything he needs to worry about regarding information. I think that he believes that everybody knows who he is. Like, they knew that he was best friends with Epstein and is like constantly grifting and lying and stealing money. So I think that really it is just that he sees what is currently going on as being beneficial to him, to his ability to maintain power and his ability to continue stealing money. Alrighty, let's see here. Jay Talks Politics says, is Trump good for Americans? No, he is not, Jay Talks Politics. And if you talk politics, you really should know that already. August says, who runs the world? Girls. John Bradley says, why does it seem like we want constant instability in the Middle East? For a bunch of reasons. You know, there are certain people who want Israel to be able to expand into all their neighboring countries. And so when all the neighboring countries are unstable, that means it gives us more excuse to do military operations there. It also creates the narrative that all of the not white people that are living in that region are just like violent animals who can't stop killing each other. You know, it also gives us more access to the resources that they have. If it's constantly unstable and we have to keep on sending the military over there, we can steal as much oil as we want. Yeah, you know, there's a bunch of different reasons depending on who you're talking to. Max knows those says, what is your opinion on nature and wild camping? I don't know how wild camping is different from regular camping, but nature is great and camping is fun. Jay Talks Politics says, Biden better? Yes, 100%. Would you like me to give you a list of things that would be better or were at least better under the Biden administration than are currently now? Jay Talks Politics, let me know. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. Clara Koenig says, what do you think of those Rhino Supreme Court judges? We were doing so great. I think it's a little, I think it's strange that your opinion of what has been going on, Clara, is that things were doing so great. And no, the Supreme Court judges that voted against Trump tariffs are not rhinos. They are the exact same ones that gave him presidential immunity. They're the exact same ones that delayed all of the trials so that he wouldn't see any accountability for the crimes that he did in his first term. I'm happy to engage with you in good faith, Clara, so long as you don't say things that are inaccurate. Daniel D. So Trump can't impose tariffs any longer. It's a little more complicated than that, Daniel D. And I'm not an expert in it, but I would say that we kind of have to watch and see how enforcement of that Supreme Court decision is going to play out. So yeah. All right. Jay Talks Politics wants the lists. Okay, here we go. Cost of living was lower under the Biden administration. Inflation was lower under the Biden administration. The Biden NLRB was siding with the union members for the first time in generations. The Biden FTC was breaking up monopolies. Biden was the first president to walk with protesters. Renee Good and Alex Preddy would still be alive. There wouldn't be tens of thousands of people illegally detained and being tortured in ICE prison camps. There would be innocent Finnish fishermen off the coast of Venezuela who would still be alive. There would be tens of thousands of veterans who would still have their jobs in the government. There would be farmers who would not be currently going bankrupt because of tariffs and mass deportations. And there would be at least 600,000 people who would still be alive because USAID would still be fully funded. Jay Talks Politics says immigration is much better under Trump. I completely disagree with that. Jay Talks Politics. Would you like me to get into some specifics? Jeannie says there wouldn't be highly unqualified people in the highest position. That is 100% accurate. Coach S8 Club says, who do you support? Democrats up and down the ballot. Shork says, Barr is in hell, but do you think Biden was the best president of the 21st century so far? I think it's probably a pretty close game between him and Obama. Obama had the disadvantage of being America's first black president, which means that there was a lot less that he could get away with than Joe Biden, who was a white man in 2020 and who had spent his entire life in the Senate, collecting IOUs from various Republicans. Jay Talks Politics says, I admit that Pam Bondi is a con. Same amount of ICE deaths as there was under Obama, by the way. I don't believe that is accurate, Jay Talks Politics. And even if it is accurate, we're talking about a difference of 1 year versus 8 years. And we are also talking about a president who was condemning ICE violence and rogue actions, as opposed to the Trump administration, which is encouraging ICE and CPP's rogue actions and violence. All right. Well, what about what I said? Jay Talks Politics. Again, I don't believe it is accurate, but even if it is, everything I just said. Eric Reed says Maduro will be coerced into claiming Dominion machines were rigged. That's one possibility, I suppose. Jay Talks Politics. I mean, with all of Trump's years. Again, I don't buy that at all. But again, how about the other things that I said, my guy? How about the fact that Trump is condoning this and encouraging it and slandering the victims of ICE and CPB. There seems to be a real difference there between Obama, who tried to rein in ICE and CPB, and Trump, who's fucking unleashed them and fucking increased their budget 300%. You know, are you honestly trying to tell me that you do not see the difference there? Because if you don't, I don't believe that you're here in good faith. I think you're just probably trying to win some sort of debate. Bert says, what do you think of Trump's comments on UFOs? He's completely full of shit. He said that he didn't know if aliens were real, but then he also said that Obama revealed classified information. So which is it, man? Which is it? You don't know anything about aliens, but you're confident that what Obama said was confidential secret information. Why would it be if we have no idea what's going on with UFOs, my guy? So yeah, he's trying to distract. He's trying to one up Obama. He's an idiot. Average Joe, great to see you again. J Talks Politics says, do you think there's fraud in Minnesota? You're sus as hell, J Talks Politics. I'm only going to talk to you when I have time. All right, John Abbott says, Jay might talk politics, but doesn't seem to know much about it. I think he might be talking bullshit more than anything. Average Joe says, my day sucks, Harry Donkey Balls. I'm feeling unapologetically cynical today, given how many state and local laws restricting protesting Biden's crackdown on school protests. I don't believe that Biden was behind those crackdowns, by the way. I think that those were all local decisions. I don't think that was a federal thing, but I could be wrong about that. Trump calling protesters domestic terrorists and ICE killing protesters. Would you agree with JFK when he said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable? Again, I do not condone any kind of violence whatsoever. Average Joe, I understand your frustration. J Talks Politics says, well, you didn't answer, haha. I mean, no, I answered all your questions. I just know when I'm talking to a brick wall. J Talks Politics. Yeah, I get it, Average Joe. And I don't know. I know that you've heard me give this speech before about making sure that you take time for yourself to step away from politics and unwind so that you can get back in the fight refreshed later. But I'm with you, man. There are definitely days when I feel that too. There's a buddy of mine who's a stand-up comedian who's really, really smart, and we get coffee sometimes, and we talk politics, of course. And, I had been doing my live stream here for you guys, preaching about, optimism and doing the work and shit like that. But he just happened to catch me on a day when I was just feeling so hopeless. And so I just went there and I just told him, I was like, here are all the things that are fucking, I'm worried about. And we just kind of like, trauma bonded for a hot second. And then we were refreshed and we were able to get back into the fight afterwards, Yeah, Jay, here's the thing, Jay. I don't debate with people, Jay, and that's what you're trying to do. You're not hearing any of the things that I'm saying. You're just trying to find an answer that I cannot give you. And that is not what I do here on the show. So you're out of here. See you later, buddy. And I'm sure that he's going to be telling all of his friends or whatever, oh, he's too scared to debate me. And he just blocks people that disagrees with him. So, he can go to hell. Gigleg says, what do you think about current colonization of Africa by China? Is it as bad or worse than current? That question is definitely over my head, Gigleg. But to answer sort of like a larger question, there are strategic advantages to having diplomatic relations with countries in Africa, both that have already become industrialized and those that are still emerging. And the way that Trump's isolationist tariff-heavy policy works is we are now ceding all of those diplomatic relations to China. So now China gets to be the one that are doing diplomatic and charitable outreach to all those nations and then getting first dibs and all their resources and shit like that. It's bad morally, it's bad strategically, it's bad economically. It's just so fucking stupid. Average Joe says, I'm not condoning violence, but would you agree or disagree that it would be irresponsible to ignore historical patterns when populations are oppressed? I don't know. I don't know if irresponsible is the word that I would use, because, it really depends. I don't know of a model where violence works against a right-wing authoritarian government, because the right-wing authoritarian government can then just use that violence to justify increasing their authoritarianism and increasing their, police state tactics. All right. Torta Pounder. That's very funny, but I'm really glad that somebody Somebody, well, you're following me, so now I feel bad blocking you just for putting a coming dick in my live stream. But please stop doing that, is all I will say. So yeah, Average Joe, how do you see that working out? If, people start doing violence on the street and then Trump just continues escalating. And then they use that to turn people against left-wing politicians, The Black Lives Matter protests that happened in 2020, some of them devolved into violence, and there is data to suggest that the actual protesters were not responsible for that violence, that it was right-wing agitators who were trying to smear the names of those protesters. But it still worked. It still worked. Lots of people point to BLM as being like the tit for tat for January 6th. How do you see that working going forward? And when I say working, like being successful, Okay, John Abbott is asking Average Joe about Erica Chenoweth. I'm 100% positive that Average Joe has heard me talk about Erica Chenoweth, All right, El Perro Loco says, which is better, a 10% hike in property taxes or a 10% tariff? There are definitely negative knock-on effects to property taxes. Like, people in the 99% do get hurt by them. But I think that if we're trying to collect revenue from the top 1%, from the billionaire class, property taxes are going to be better at that than tariffs. Alrighty, scrolling up. Shork says, does this SCOTUS ruling give you hope? No, 100% no. They have the bar could not be lower for the Supreme Court if we believe that what they just did was some sort of evidence of their impartiality. If anything, these companies are tired. These billionaire-owned companies are tired of having to shoulder some of the cost of the tariffs because they were worried that Americans are too poor right now to take all of the cost of the tariffs. Right. Sieg says, are you left, right, or center? I am left. Peter, yes, we can see your messages. The Fixer Mike says, when will you have open chats? What does that mean, the Fixer? What does open chat mean? All right, I already did that one by Gigleg. Beaverino says, do you think Trump will be impeached again if Democrats take the House and the Senate? So, yes, Beaverino, Trump will 100% be impeached if Democrats retake the House. The Senate is a little bit more complicated. Like, we don't need the Senate to impeach Donald Trump. We do need the Senate if we want to remove Trump from office, but the number of seats that we would need in the Senate to be able to do that is a lot. And many pollsters will tell you that it is virtually impossible for us to reach that threshold. So yeah, we would need to win every single Senate race that is up in 2026 in order for us to have enough seats to remove him from office. All we really need to impeach him is a majority in the House. Okay, Diego Vargas says, thoughts on SCOTUS decision today regarding tariffs? I think it's a good decision. Stopped clock twice a day, etc. But yeah, I don't. They were negative $1 million, and now they are negative 999,999. Jeannie says, what good is an impeachment if we can't remove? There are things that are good about that, Jeannie. Like, we want to make sure that the levers of power are working, the levers of accountability are working. And so if we can impeach Trump in the House and he's not removed from office, then at least the American people can look and say, like, those are the people that stopped any accountability happening for Donald Trump. They are right there. They're sitting right there. We are looking at them. It is them. If we don't even impeach him in the House, then people can say, oh, Democrats, Republicans, doesn't really matter. There's no accountability for the rich and powerful and Donald Trump, etc. And then it also feeds into the narrative of Democrats being weenies and they never actually get anything accomplished, etc., etc. Also, it would really bother Trump to be a 3 or 4-time impeached president, the only president who's been impeached more than once, and now he's fucking already Babe Ruthing this with like the highest record. No one's ever going to be able to break that record, going forward. So yeah, there are 100% advantages towards it. Maxie says Scotland independence if they want. Let's see here. Scrolling up. Aaron Gregory says Trump said he's going to keep tariffing, but in a different way? ? I'm kind of learning about this in real time, Aaron Gregory, so I don't have any information on that specifically. We just kind of have to wait and see. There's a podcast that I listened to on Monday called Strict Scrutiny that goes over all of the legal specifics of what is going on in our government and the Supreme Court, and so I'm sure I will have a much more nuanced take for you on that on Tuesday after I've listened to that. Kid says, what do you think about the Save America Act? The Save America Act is a solution without a problem. It is a voter suppression bill. It will do nothing to maintain election security. It will disenfranchise 20 million legal American citizen voters. So I am fully against it, and everybody in America should be. Odinson says, how do you feel about eradicating earmarks? I'm not 100% sure what you mean about that, Odinson. El Toro Pero Loco says, landlords just passed the property taxes increase into lease rates. That is accurate, El Toro, and that is exactly what I'm talking about when I say that there are negative knock-on effects for the 99%. But in addition to that happening, we are also taking in more money from billionaire assholes and their fucking mega mansions and beach houses and fucking snow cabins and shit like that. Okay, Average Joe and John Abbott. I see you guys having these great conversations on the stream and on the Discord channel. And I'm just really glad that you guys are engaging. It seems like you guys have a good engagement, a good back and forth, and you're learning from each other. Fletch Lives Again says, are there disadvantages to impeaching too many times? He has done more than 10 impeachable things. I honestly don't. I think that it's possible that the Republican Party and right-wing billionaire propaganda narratives will try to pop up to say that they are bad, but that's they're going to do that shit anyways. Okay, Flamingo Mo says we should give him a nice trophy for being the most impeached president to make him happy. That's pretty funny. The Fixer Mike says Cuba is out of oil, power, water, hospitals, perishable food, serious and dangerous. Yeah, I really fear for them. Diego Vargas says, I think Gavin Newsom will be our nominee in 2028 after seeing what he told allies in Europe. It's possible. He seems very electable, being a tall, straight, handsome, well-spoken white man. But that's for the primary voters to decide. Excellent questions, everybody. JP says impeachment is a political act, not a criminal trial. It requires votes to impeach and again to impose the penalty. That is 100% accurate. Tiana says, let's be clear, nobody's voting for Newsom. That is inaccurate, Tiana. There will probably be lots of people that vote for Newsom in the primary. And if he wins the primary, there will be lots of people voting for him in the general. And I am one of them. Blue Collar Rick says, here you go, bro. Thank you, Blue Collar Rick. Tiana says, nobody with a brain. I think that's a little weird that you would say that, Tiana. Like, I understand not liking Gavin Newsom. He's not my first choice, but he's fine. He's completely acceptable as a Democratic presidential candidate. So yeah, maybe take down the temperature a little bit in your comments, Tiana. Right. Thank you, Yolanda. JP says Gavin Newsom is straight. Yeah, as far as I know. Wasn't he married to that one lady? I don't know why you'd married to that lady if you weren't a straight person. I don't understand the value of that relationship. Let's see here. Tiana says, as a Democrat who lives in California, no, he's not fine. All right, well, I'm a Democrat who lives in California too, and I say he is fine. Tiana, are you aware of the propaganda tactic of people claiming that they are Democrats just so they can create divisions within the party? I'm just bringing this up as a hypothetical, like maybe you heard about it. Triska, Kim Buckman, Muzz King, Aaron Gregory, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And you know what that means, everybody? It is finger hearts o'clock. This is one of the latest finger hearts o'clock that we have ever had on Ask Me Anything About Politics. But, better late than never, as the expression goes. Sophia, great to see you again. Where you been, buddy? Ogre says, politics isn't real. Yes, it is. Blue Collar Rick says, Gavin Newsom is anti-Second Amendment. That's weird because I can buy a gun in California, and he's been governor for 2 terms. Sophia says, views on the nation's current incarceration rates. Incarceration rates are a really tricky kind of a thing to talk about because some people view having high incarceration rates as a good thing because it means a decrease in crime. Other people see incarceration rates as a mechanism by which we can suppress certain demographics from voting, a way of enslaving people into forced labor in a way that is still currently legal, a way of enriching private prison contractors. And so, yeah, I do not believe that it is a sign of a healthy nation when we have such a high incarceration rate. I also do not believe that it is happening in good faith. I do not believe that people are just trying to stop crime from happening when, you know, white people and black people commit crimes at virtually the same rate, and yet you are like 10 times more likely to go to jail if you are a black person than a white person. I think the private prison industrial complex is a fucking it's a barbaric travesty that has absolutely zero place in civilized society. And again, you know how I feel about this. Though the way you actually stop crime is not by throwing everybody in jail; it is by making sure that nobody's living in poverty. You know. Oh, okay. Shork says, "What is your ideal interpretation of the Second Amendment?" Well-regulated militia. Emphasis on the well-regulated. John Abbott says the Nobel Impeachment Prize. I fucking love that. That is very clever. Ah, Joe Padilla, that's great. Thank you so much. The Fixer Mike says, I watched your live for 300 minutes. Ah, hey, how about that? Congratulations. Lucas says, word on the street is you got a BBL. No, I got that through exercise, man. I'm a cyclist, so I got thick and juicy cheeks completely naturally. Thank you very much. Flamingo Moses, it's too early to talk about who you don't want. How about talk about who you do want and vote? What a wonderful attitude to have, Flamingo Mo. That is the perfect encapsulation. That is the perfect response to people who are spending all of their time and energy just throwing shade at people who could potentially be the Democratic nominee for president in 3 fucking years, you know? Alrighty. Let's see here. Cost says, what are some other people running in the primary except for Gavin? I genuinely do not know. I don't believe that anybody has announced yet. I think that everybody's just kind of like doing their exploratory committees and they're doing their speeches that are kind of like suggesting that they are going to be thinking about maybe declaring at some point in the future. But yeah, nobody has declared at this point. Jackson Isham says, are you on the left or the right side? I'm on the left side. Tiana says, so because I said I live in California and don't like Gavin Newsom, automatically I'm faking my party. I didn't say that. I just said that was a thing that people do, Tiana. It seems like you're really reading into what I'm saying, you know. But also, why don't you do what what's his name fucking said? I forget which one of my followers said it. But instead of focusing on who you don't like, because nobody's even declared, why don't you talk about who you do like? Who do you like for a potential Democratic nominee? Dan Blackburn says it's February 2026. Everybody chill out. That is another reason why I find it a little sus, Tiana. Jackson Isham says, do you think that Trump is a PDF cannibal? I don't know what Trump has or has not done. Nothing has been proven in the court of law. But here's what I will say about him. First of all, thank you to everybody who helped me reach my first Finger Hearts goal. Vanessa, Triska, Kim Buckman, Joe Padilla, Flamingo Mo. Flamingo Mo is the one who said that great thing about why don't you talk about who you like instead of who you refuse to vote for no matter what. All right, setting up the next goal here, trying to remember what I was talking about as far as like what Trump was doing and something, or what the hell was I talking about? Oh, so yeah, here's what I will say. All of the accusations that have come out regarding what Trump has or has not done in the Epstein files, they all make sense to me. They all seem like the kind of thing that he would do. Additionally, there was a woman who was suing Trump because she claimed that he raped her when she was 13 years old. I personally believe that he used threats of violence to get her to rescind that accusation, because why else would you fucking do that, you know? Yeah, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence pointing to the fact that those claims are accurate, but again, nothing has been proven in court. N5R, how are you, my man? Has your baby been born yet? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good. N5, baby has not been born. We are looking at a May 2nd delivery date. Okay. Diane Raya says, a lot that tracks based. Accurate. All right. Average Joe says, did you complete the homework I assigned you yesterday? No, I did not, Average Joe. Did you send it to me on the Discord? I can't remember what it was. Let's see here. Okay, Ogre says being on the left or right is so low IQ in 2026. That is inaccurate, Ogre. So Ogre, I do a thing on my live streams where I put people in question jail when I feel like they're not here in good faith. And so unless you ask a question in your next 1 or 2 comments, then I'm going to have to kick you out of the live stream. I apologize. Jackson Isham says, do you agree with Trump's policies? No, I do not. N5 says I got to join your Substack. I keep forgetting. Oh, I don't have a sub. I do have a Substack, but you should join the Discord. The Discord is where there's great recommendations, and if you need like work, you want to do things to try to help right now. There's things that you can do on the Discord channel. Great nonprofit organizations. Tiana says kick people out because they don't agree with you. Oh my gosh, brother, you're the reason our party is. That's not what I said, Tiana. You are completely full of it. You are sus as hell, and I fucking called it from the very first comment that you said. Sophia, you are the opposite of Tiana. If incarceration rate reduced, what alternative system ensures criminals don't get away with crimes? Excellent question. So decreasing the incarceration rate does not mean that we don't throw criminals in jail for doing crimes. What we do, though, is we look at what are the ways that we stop people who do crimes from doing crimes in the future. It's called recidivism rates, like who, once they go to jail, then just goes back to jail eventually. So we focus on humanely imprisoning people. You should check out this documentary that Michael Moore did called "Where Should We Invade Next?" And they talk about the way that prison and incarceration works in one of the Scandinavian countries, I forget which. And they focus very much on rehabilitation and education programs. And it is very much not a torture place where, there's like maggots in your food and shit like that. So yeah, obviously there's going to be a transition where people are still doing crimes. And even though as we are eliminating poverty, people are still doing crimes. If you do crimes, then you should go to jail. The punishment should fit the crime. While you're in jail, we should do what we can to rehabilitate you and make it so that you can be a productive member of society. Alrighty. Diane Raya says, do you have an opinion on Texas Tallarico? I like Tallarico a lot. N5RTN says, how will a Trump gold card work after 4 years? Technically, won't it be pointless? Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the gold card that money's just going directly into his pocket. So I don't really think it's going to have any utility after he's gone. Right. BTS says, too bad America imported the third world since the 90s and now it's finished. That seems to me like a racist comment, BTS. I'm going to ask you to be better going forward. Vanity Versace, good to see you again. Says, oh my gosh, I can't believe some of these folks insecure, question mark. I think I'm agreeing with what you're saying, my guy. Joe Padilla says, you think Trump knows he's lying when he's lying? Oh, 100%. Let's see here. Josh Miles says, that is what you said. That is not what I said. I said, if you're not here in good faith, then you have to ask a question or you're blocked. Carmine says, can you call it a punishment if you're trying to rehabilitate? I mean, I guess incarceration is the punishment. Like, you're taking people out of their lives. You're taking them away from their family members. That should be the punishment part of it, not living in a fucking, hellhole with a hard bed and no private bathrooms and, yeah, really shitty food and stuff like that. Ogre says, you're safe here as long as he agrees with you. That's not what I said at all. There are plenty of people who don't agree with me, who I engage with all of the time, like my MAGA friend Sophia, for example. All right, Sophia says, so you're saying we should reform the system so criminals are punished in a way that prevents future crime? Yes, 100%, Sophia. Toon says, what do you think about the dancing Israelis? I don't know what that is in reference to. SB Backlazan says, any country politics or just the U.S.? U.S. is my specialty. I have very limited amounts of knowledge concerning other countries' politics. You can ask. I might not be able to answer. Alrighty, let's see here. Big Man says, thoughts on ICE. ICE is a rogue organization that is behaving immorally and illegally. They are guilty of murder. They should 100% be abolished. They are rotten to the fucking core. Alrighty, let's see here. Scrolling up. Diego Vargas says, will Trump invade Iran? I've got no fucking idea. Okay, let's see here. BTS says, Middle East, healthcare, economy, race, blah, blah, blah. Same shit since the 1960s. All right, well, that's a block. Ludwig says, who's going to be the next political leader of the Alternative Party in Denmark? I have no idea. Okay, scrolling down to the bottom. Dan Blackwood says, ICE hasn't even existed that long. We can't do without them. 100% accurate, Dan Blackwood. You don't miss. N5R says, do you feel like Native Americans have moral rights here in the U.S.? I feel like they should be prioritized. They do have rights. I do think they have moral rights as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. the prioritization question seems a little trickier, where have we done enough to make up for the crimes that we have done? And I feel like crimes is too soft a word, but the crimes against humanity that we did against our Native American populations. I don't think so. But I guess I just don't know what prioritization then would look like. I don't know how that works logistically. I'm open to that argument. Let's see here. Aesop's. I have heard about your cunt. Carmine says, what about felons regaining rights after sentencing? Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I think they should. There have been specific states that have voted to re-enfranchise all of their rehabilitated felons, and I believe that should be part of what you get when you go through rehabilitation. When you become a productive member of society, you then get to have a say in who our elected leaders are again. Jacob13 says, what's your opinion on ISIS policies? I think is what you meant by ISIS policies. I'm against them. Righty. Excellent live stream so far, everybody. Where are we at time-wise? Where's my counter at? I'm on a new system, so I don't know where my clock is. Oh, yeah. We got about 10 minutes left. Diego Vargas, I already answered that question. Did you not hear? The answer is I don't know. And nobody does, unfortunately. If he wants a fresh distraction from the Epstein files, he may very well. Okay, scrolling up, seeing what is anything interesting here. Any interesting questions I did not get to? All right. Scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Flamingo Mo says, are you feeling better today? You sound better. I am feeling better today, but I am ready for the weekend. I am very much ready for the week. I got a Friday routine happening, a regular Friday routine where I go to the gym. At the gym that I use, they have a hot tub and a cold plunge, which helps me a lot because I'm an old person. I need that. And then I come home and I do a little gardening. And yeah, it's a perfect way to start the weekend, in my opinion. Sophia says, if equality is the goal, how wouldn't DEI contradict that by giving unequal treatment? That is an excellent question, Sophia. So the way that I look at things like DEI and affirmative action is a little bit like a medicine that has some negative side effects. So is it possible that we are losing out on qualified people because we are giving preference to diversity, equity, and inclusion? It's possible. It doesn't really work out statistically. Like, if you look at who's actually getting those jobs and who's actually getting admitted to those colleges, what's actually happening is that mediocre people are not getting those positions, and overqualified people of color and people in the LGBTQ community are finally getting those jobs. What we have a history of here in America is people who are overly qualified but who are part of marginalized communities, like people of color or the LGBTQ community or women, for example. They lose out on jobs to straight white men who are just okay. And so what DEI and affirmative action was trying to solve is that issue. Like, how do we actually get these companies to hire people from these marginalized communities? How do we actually get colleges and universities to accept into their ranks people from these marginalized communities? But where my analogy comes in is it is possible that could happen in some situations, even though statistically that is very much not what is happening. And in those situations, I think that fucking sucks, and it's very, very hard to sit there and think like, I could be doing this job, but instead somebody who's worse than me is doing this job instead. Again, I'm very skeptical that happens, and if it does, it's extremely rare. Alrighty. So yeah, I think once we have a more equitable society, then we can get rid of all those initiatives. Okay, Shork says, also people with black names are disadvantaged when finding work. That is 100% accurate. Johnny L says, when companies swing the other way, it's bad. Many companies are discriminating against men. I don't know if that's accurate, Johnny L. I have not seen the data on that. Grace says, Trump lost seat in Fort Worth, Texas today to a Democrat. Was there another election that happened today? That seems like an old thing that happened. Jeannie says, the fact that we need to implement DEI speaks volumes. Completely agree. CS says, do you support abolishing all slavery, meaning amendments to get rid of all the prison slavery? Yes, I do, CS. Prison slavery is basically a loophole to do slavery again, because what you do is you have a bunch of white supremacists who decide to get jobs as cops. They overpolice black neighborhoods, send black people to jail, and they give them harsher sentences for crimes than they do to white people. Now suddenly you have all these black people who suddenly can't vote again and are also doing free labor in prison. So look at what we got here. It's just another version of slavery happening under a different name, you know? Yes, 100% I am against that. Sophia says, but haven't we already made some progress towards more equity? Like, at one point, are we taking it too far? That's a really good question, Sophia. And I don't have those numbers like memorized off the top of my head. I do not believe that we are seeing even close to a similar demographic breakdown in, you know, positions of great esteem and pay and our institutions of higher learning. What we want is to say, all right, this country is 50% white and 50% not white. If you look at all the CEOs of all the Fortune 500 companies, is that 50% white and 50% not white? The country is 50% male and 50% female. If you look at all the CEOs in this country, are they 50% male and 50% female? If you look at college admissions, are you seeing, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but if the country is like 10% Asian and 10% black and 10% Hispanic, are you seeing college admissions reflecting that 10% black, 10% Hispanic, 10% Asian, stuff like that? I would like to get much closer, if not completely equal to, those demographic breakdowns in those higher levels before I think we can take our foot off the gas of things like DEI and affirmative action. That's not a hill that I necessarily need to die on, but I don't think that we're close to that, and so I think we still need that. Alrighty, let's see here. Lauren says the next Texas vote isn't until March 3rd. I don't know what that person was talking about. Yeah, it just feels like an old comment. JJJ says, what Democrat policies do you not agree with? I don't know if there's any Democrat policies that I don't agree with. There are certain Democrat policies that I think could be more aggressive. Like, I don't care for slow walking our way to universal health care. I don't care for not aggressively going after, ill-gotten gains from the billionaire class. I think we should be more aggressive in getting the working class a fairer slice of their productivity. And I do see the Democratic Party enacting those policies. I just don't think they're happening fast or aggressive enough. Same thing with climate change. Like, we need to be doing more to transition to green energy. And the Biden administration ushered in the largest investment in renewable energy in our nation's history. And I fucking loved that, but I wanted more. I wanted a fucking climate corps where we were hiring people, but the government was hiring people to do a massive fucking restructuring of our technologies and our energy grids so that we could be living just on free energy from the sun and the wind and the water and geothermal right now. So yeah, that's where I say my differences with the what do you call it? Olek8098 says, what do you think about Trump and Jeffrey? You're talking about Epstein, right? Olek? I'm against them, both of them. Alrighty, let's see here. Let's see here. Average Joe says it's the New York Times, so it might be behind a paywall or maybe an email. Can't remember. Yes, I'll definitely have to read that. Average Joe says something I forgot to mention yesterday regarding the focus groups is expected for participants to display a varying degree of separation in their opinions, and a single focus group is not a reliable enough sample size. However, when every member is in lockstep on an issue, that tends to signify an important trend. Again, Average Joe, I completely agree with this. I just think what we're seeing is how effective the right-wing billionaire propaganda agenda has been. Because I do not agree that what those people said in that focus group is an accurate representation of what the Democratic Party actually is, and of their governing history. I think it's unfair. So yeah, I'll still read the article so that we can have a more, like nuanced conversation about it. But yeah, people can be wrong. Focus groups can be wrong. It is important to learn how people feel about things, but it doesn't mean that we have to believe that the what do you call it? That the that their conclusions are 100% accurate. I'm sure that if you poll people, in the Jim Crow South, they would tell you that they're treating black people completely fine. Okay, Chris Paul says, Jared, I think you're focusing too much on headline topics. Any thoughts on bid protesting within government procurement? I don't know what that is, Chris Paul. Billiam Bagpipe says, geothermal is better than wind and solar, but is restricted to volcanic locations. I just say let's just do a little bit of everything, Billiam. Diane Reyes says, opinions are not facts. That is accurate. RD says, abundance proved that our affordability problem stems from overregulation. Did you read Abundance, RD? Because that is not what the book said. Oscar says, do you think that there is any situation where violence is justified? I personally do not. Maybe against aliens. Okay. Billy in Bagpipe says, wind and solar are not reliable and cause more pollution than fossil fuels. That is inaccurate. Billy in Bagpipes. G7 says, who should the Democrats run in 2028 for the best chance to win? I don't think the Democrats should run anybody. I think the people should run for president, and the Democrats should run whoever wins in the primary. RD says yes twice. It's weird that you did not. It's weird that you did not get the actual message of what that book was. RD. Yeah, I find that very sus, considering that you don't have a profile picture, you don't have a screen name, and you are saying things that are inaccurate about a book that I read. Sophia says, I'm not against helping the climate, but I think many regulations strongly harm middle class people. It's possible, Sophia. I don't know how accurate that statement is, but I think it's definitely possible. And I believe that that is what the job of the government is to make sure that people don't fall through the cracks as you are instituting regulations that are for the greater good and for transitioning us to, a renewable energy system. So yeah, I think that we can all agree. See, here's where I think the miscommunication happens between the parties, Sophia, and let me know if you're still here and you're hearing this, is that Democrats say we want to transition to green energy, and the Republican Party says, but that is going to hurt people that are currently working for fossil fuel companies. And then we say, okay, well, why don't we tax the billionaire class, and we can use that money for programs to retrain people for other jobs, or we can give them universal basic income so they don't have to worry about having jobs. And if there are issues with people not having jobs and just getting money for free, we can try to deal with that in itself. But we're not saying let's just leave those people, in the gutter to die. We're saying it is so necessary for everybody that we do this transition. And if there are people that are getting fucked by it, then we should be able to help them. And then Republicans never seem to hear that part of the sentence. They only hear Democrats want to take your jobs away. Democrats want you to starve to death with their regulations. Democrats want you to not be able to get into college. They want to give it to some black person or gay person. Does that make sense, Sophia? Let me know what you think about that. CS says, would you agree it's amazing how a Democratic hoax got Prince Andrew arrested? CS17. That is amazing. I can't believe that, man. Axe says, what is politics? Politics is how we discuss our government and who should be running our government and what they should be doing. John D says, what do you think about Trump giving himself $10 billion for the Board of Peace? He is a con artist. He is a grifter. He is stealing our tax dollars and putting it into his pocket. It is unprecedented, the amount of grift, corruption, and theft that Trump has accomplished in his first and second term. And the fact that the Republican Party is allowing it to happen, the fact that there aren't fucking impeachment hearings right now, the fact that he is not being dragged to jail by a bipartisan committee is a fucking massive indictment of the entire Republican Party. And I believe that it completely invalidates Republican Party politicians that they are letting this happen. To me, it's like, you don't deserve to have a job as a Republican politician, from president to dog catcher, if you are letting this happen. So it is my opinion that we vote them all fucking out of office. We vote them all out of office yesterday because there's no excuse. Oh, I'm scared that Trump's going to tell the supporters that I voted against him, and then they're going to give me death threats and going to burn my fucking house down. All right, well then fucking resign. Then give your job to somebody who will actually do it instead. Oh, okay. Oscar says, you ever seen Inglourious Bastards? If yes, do you think it would have been a good ending for World War II? Sure. Yeah. I love that movie. That's one of my favorite Tarantino movies. I do not endorse Tarantino as a human being. He seems like a real creep. But Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained are two of my favorite movies of all time. All right. Let's see here. Alrighty, let's see here. Mecha Kind says, hello back to you. Average Joe says, I think each respondent was from a different state also, so regional bias could be ruled out. Again, I have no issues with the way that the study was conducted, the way the focus groups were conducted. I just think what we are looking at is a very successful propaganda campaign by the billionaire class, by the right, by right-wing media, etc. Zach something says, I want your opinion on the Olympics ruling politics doesn't have a place in sports. I disagree with that. I disagree that I think politics can be and should be everywhere. Short says, can you steel man a good reason why Republicans create much fewer jobs than Democrats? That's a really, I'm not 100% sure what you mean by steel man. So if I was going to say a straw man, it would be like a bullshit argument. But if you're going to say a steel man, yeah, I don't know if I'm doing the thing you're asking me to do, but the argument for the reason why Republicans create fewer jobs than Democrats is because Republicans increase the cost of living on the 99%. And when we have less money to spend, then there is less work that needs to be done, and so fewer positions that need to be hired for. It's classic, Henry Ford shit. It's classic fucking Keynesians. Jeffrey Epstein says, why you sound like Charlie Kirk? I do not sound like Charlie Kirk. I am way more accurate in my statements than he ever was. N5R says, appreciate you for hearing both sides out and giving valid points. Not a lot of people do that. I appreciate you, N5R. RD says, Republicans don't want to change anything. Dems made it too hard to change anything. Again, I disagree with that, RD. Do you remember the part of the book where they talk about Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro? Do you remember that part of the book that you claim that you read? Guy G says, is Trump able to write off his expense for his diapers on his taxes as president? Definitely likely. Guy G, I already did that one. Proof of Palestine says, hey, Rabbi Shmuley from Alibaba. Why am I being called a less attractive version of Rabbi Shmuley? As though I'm fucking Temu anything, man. I'm fucking cut like glass, man. I'm fucking diamond. I'm a diamond in the rough here. Fucking runway model ready, guys. Calling me fucking poor man's fucking anything, man. Rabbi Shmuley is a poor man's Jared Berenstein. That's for fucking sure. RD says, Josh, rare exception, and Dems still hate him and won't run him. I have seen zero evidence that the Democratic Party is trying to stymie Josh Shapiro's political campaign. Lauren says, the steel man is a reinforcement of an opposing argument before challenging it. Yeah, I guess I don't know how that would, I don't know what that would look like. I wonder if I answered the question correctly, if I did. Proof of Palestine says, the fact that you're chill about it is cool. I appreciate that, Proof of Palestine. The Learning Center says, explain the left's hate of the Second Amendment. The left does not hate the Second Amendment, the Learning Center. The left believes that we have too much gun violence in this country and that we should do something about it. I would ask you to explain why Republicans feel like what the level of gun violence that we have here in America is acceptable, and why they claim that mental health care is the thing that's going to solve it, and then they defund mental health care, both federally and in the states where they have a majority. Alrighty, thank you, OB. I appreciate that. Alrighty, scrolling down. Temu Jake Gyllenhaal. I'll take that. I'll take Temu Jake Gyllenhaal. Let's see here. Sophia says, I grew up on a farm, and from what I've seen, renewable energy rules take away resources from agriculture. It's interesting, Sophia. I haven't heard that before. I'm curious how accurate that is. Obviously, there's two things to keep in mind here, it's just I did not grow up on a farm, so I don't know. My dad is not a cop, so I don't know. But I only know you through the internet, so you could be making all this stuff up. And I'm not gonna kick you out of here because I don't actually know who you are. But we have to take everything that we read on the internet with a massive grain of salt, and I include myself in that. Double check everything that I say. You will find that I am 99% accurate. So yeah. I would love to see some information on that. If you want to send it over to me, let me know. Okay, Nettle says thoughts on Sharia. I don't know her. Let's see here. The Learning Center says boats and hose. That doesn't really answer my question. Doesn't really answer my question. The Learning Center. Flamingo Mo says, why do Republicans think it's wrong to bring a firearm to a protest then? I think it's wrong when it can be used as an excuse for CPB murdering people. But I think you knew that already. CS says Step Brothers quote from the Learning Center. Is that a Step Brothers quote? I mean, I'm a little ashamed of myself for not recognizing that because I fucking love that movie. Alrighty, let's see here. Bad Kitty says, imagine terrorists targeting nuclear power plants. That is a very terrifying thing to think about, Bad Kitties. I don't know why you forced me to do that. Let's see here. eBay Steve Hofstetter. RD says, what are your thoughts on Macron's recent statement on free speech? I do not know what Macron recently said about free speech. Shay, May, Katie, great to see you again. Says, what happens to the tariff money collected from the federal government now that the Supreme Court reversed it? Nobody knows. We're kind of in a wait and see time right now. Sophia says, doesn't take resources directly, but it costs more money to comply with those rules. So indirectly it does. Gotcha. John Langford says, answer the question, Jarrett. I didn't see your question. Yeah, I get that, Sophia. And again, this is exactly what I'm talking about, where let us help farmers pay for those transitions. If we are going to all benefit from a farmer transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy, then it stands to reason that we should all pay tax money into a fund that those farmers then can use to pay for that transition to happen. And I got to ask you, Sophia, because I feel like I asked you a question earlier you didn't respond to. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me that the Democratic Party does not want farmers to go bankrupt? The Democratic Party does not want people to lose their jobs and have no way to feed their family. Are you hearing me that what the Democratic Party's plan is to do both the transition and to take care of people who might be being hurt by those particular regulations? Like, tell me you are hearing those comments that I am saying, please. Okay, Austin Bridges says, Democrats are all corrupt, bro. That is inaccurate, Austin Bridges. You're in question jail. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you from the live stream. Triska Fawn says, then I think we should talk about the lowest classes who suffer the most due to climate change. That's a really good point as well, Triska. If you're telling me that it is immoral to force a farmer to incur the cost of switching over to renewable energy, why is it more moral to allow people in impoverished areas to suffer from the climate change that those farmers are contributing to? Austin Bridges says, go ahead and boot me. Your wish is my command. See you later, buddy. Alrighty. Okay, scrolling up. Shay May Katie says, no Doge money, no tariff money. What changed in this presidency over the last year? Oh my God, so much change. Donald Trump put a lot of our tax dollars in his pockets. We have worse relationship with all of our neighbors. There are tens of thousands of people who have suffered completely immorally and unjustly. Yeah, just to name a few things that have changed. Billy and Backprep says they should put solar farms over parking lots instead of on land that can be farmed. No arguments here, Billy and Bagpipes. Lauren says that was a steal, man. What was a steal, man, Lauren? What did I do? Was it something that I did or something that you did, Lauren? Oy. John Langford says, are you pro or against cocaine usage in AMC movies? I'll tell you the reason why that got me so good is because you were being a jerk about me answering that question. So I really thought it was going to be some right-wing shit on here, you know? Sophia says, I understand it. I don't think the Democratic Party's intention is to harm small farm businesses. I appreciate you saying that, Sophia, but I would even say it's more than that. I think it is the Democratic Party's intention to take care of small farm businesses. I think that that's part of their platform, is to make sure that the 99% is taken care of. RD says, appreciate the convo, like your overall direction. Thank you for all the lives. See you tomorrow. Thank you for being here, RD. I apologize that I roasted you so hard because I doubted that you read the book because of the things that you said. I thank you for taking my snark in stride. I appreciate that. Lauren said the climate change point you said there, point more eloquently, and then debunked it. Gotcha. It's the Rocketeer says that Mr. Roast. Yeah, I was just telling somebody that I thought they were sus, you know. Okay. All right. Things are calming down a little bit. Mecha Kind says, what do you think about ICE is going on a power trip? I mean, I think that there are a lot of reasons for what ICE is doing. I think that they're all bad. You know, like they want to do power trips. Some of them are just racist and they really enjoy murdering brown people. I haven't seen any evidence of this, but I'm pretty confident that there is sexual assault happening in these ICE detention facilities. And I think that some of them really want to be in a position where they are allowed to do really awful shit just like that. Yeah, you know, they want to intimidate people. They want to lock up people who vote Democratic. They want to murder people who vote Democratic. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of motivations there, you know. Okay, Hina says, Sophia, do you think we are discriminated against or systematically oppressed? CS says, Trump said he's not following the Supreme Court's decision on tariff. What happens now? That is an excellent question, CS. And the honest answer is nobody really knows. We have to put political pressure on our elected representatives to force the Trump administration to abide by judicial orders. We have to put pressure on the DOJ to use the U.S. Marshals to enforce the judge's orders. You know, like I don't believe that the Republican Party has the stones or the desire to force Trump to adhere to judicial orders, which again is another reason why I think that they are invalid as a political party. Yeah, I don't know. We might see some legislation. Like right now, the tariffs are hurting the billionaire class in a way that they do not like. And so that's part of the reason why I think the billionaire shill Supreme Court voted to undo these tariffs. So are there billionaire shill Republicans currently in Congress who are willing to do what billionaires want them to do instead of what Trump wants them to do? That's an open question. But yeah, you know, the work continues. We have to do the work to make that shit happen. All right. Average Joe says, did you see that he said the U.S. will give $10 billion to himself for his board of peace? Since he named himself the chairman of the board, he will have its spending discretion. And do you remember that he is suing the IRS for $10 billion? And do you remember that he sued the DOJ for $230 million? Yes, 100% to all of those things, Average Joe. The grift is insane. It is unprecedented. It's stunning that people are not more pissed off about this. Wacko Mind says, is politics addictive? We talked about this last time we were on the live stream, Wacko Mind. Do you not remember? Bad Kitty says, did you hear about Israeli surveillance of Epstein's property in New York? I didn't hear about that, but that makes sense. That tracks for me. Shay May Katie says, can our president be arrested in another country where he was involved with the files? He could, but I think it is very unlikely that he would be. Shay May KD. Yeah, I think that it is. There are a lot of things standing in the way of that happening. Not the least of which being, you know, that it would cause a massive international incident. Not the least of which being that the American military would then be incentivized to go in to get our president back. You know, shit like that. Ready. Hina, Sophia is here in good faith, so we're not going to increase the temperature. We are not going to try to start fights, Hina. Bad Kitty says, are we going to war with Iran? I don't know. The answer is maybe. And if so, why? As a distraction from the Epstein files, as a personal favor to the Netanyahu government in Israel, as a favor to military contractors who want us to fire our weapons and shoot our bullets so that they can charge us to make more of them. for fossil fuel barons who want to get the oil that is in that region, for all of the Christian extremists who believe that Israel needs to take over that area so that the rapture can happen. Yeah, there's a lot of really terrible motivations for that. It's the Rocketeers that just shipped my figures from Japan last week, so you can all thank me for the SCOTUS ruling. That's very funny. Josh says, thoughts on Greens, like on the Green Party in America? Shay May Katie says, so there's a chance that Miro's regime could try and extract him from our custody. I don't believe that they have a military that's capable of doing that. Shay May Katie. But yeah, if we did that to a country that has a stronger military, one that was more equal to our own, and we sent the fucking SEALs in to kidnap their leader, then 100% that would most likely start a war. Okay, Josh says America or UK, either. I don't know what the Green Party is like in the UK, but the Green Party in America is a fucking joke, and there is significant evidence to suggest that the leader of the American Green Party, Jill Stein, is an agent of the Russian government who only enters elections to be spoilers for Democratic presidential candidates. So yeah, the American Green Party can fuck right off. That is Billiam Bagpipes. I have not gone through all the files. I do not know what you mean about involved. While it is true that we have not seen anything fully incriminating, we do not know what, I think him being involved is something that we can accurately say. He was definitely involved with Epstein. Whether or not he did anything that we can prosecute based on the information that's been released is an open question. But yeah, and there's also a bunch of documents and videos that we have not seen yet, Josh says, same in the UK, except the Russian spy part. That you know about, Josh. That you know about. Okay, Wacko Mine says, is Bush still considered a war criminal? I think so. Average Joe says, another country arresting Trump for his Epstein crimes. Don't give me hope. Wacko Mine says, would citizens arrest work to curtail fascism? I don't know what you mean by that, Wacko Mine. Mecha Kind says, what do you think about government making concentration camps like the Nazis back in the 40s? I am against it, Mecha Kind. And yes, I do believe that what ICE is doing is creating modern-day concentration camps. Billion Bagpipes is involved in taking part in his crimes. Again, it just depends on what your definition is, my guy. Let's see here. Bad Kitty says, release all the files. I completely agree. The Republican Party is involved in a massive government cover-up of one of the largest and most notorious child sex trafficking rings in world history. Hina says, how does Sophia not support Israel when she seems like a really religious Christian? Never seen that. I believe that Sophia is more isolationist and does not believe that we should be sending our money and weapons over to Israel. I don't know how she feels about the Netanyahu government doing a genocide and war crimes against the people of Palestine. Alrighty, everybody. Excellent questions today. Excellent live stream. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for all your questions, your comments, and your engagement, your gifts. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me, whether it is the free kind or the paid kind. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling, but if you have the means and you have the will, the mechanisms are there. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send emotes on Twitch. If anybody out there in Twitch land is trying to send me emotes and I haven't set it up correctly, let me know. You can become a super fan on TikTok as well. That's like a monthly subscription. And if there are things that you would like, there are cool things that we could do with the people who are like the super fans if we had more of them. And I'm happy to do those things, but I don't know if like having a live stream with just the 5 of us at the moment, I've got like 5. I don't know if that would be entertaining for you guys. You can also become a subscriber on my Twitch channel, and if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel completely for free. Helps me out a ton. Does not cost you a cent. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, then please do not be shy about reaching out to me. Triska, Lindsay Reed, Kim Buckman, Muzz King, Aaron Gregory, thank you so much for helping me reach my second Finger Hearts goal of the day. I want to be a resource for you all. I want to be somebody that you're like, if I have a question, if I want to get more involved or informed about politics, then I'm going to reach out to Jarrett because that's what he does. I want that to be our relationship and our dynamic. So if there are ways that I can help you do that, use me and abuse me, use me until you use me up. My DMs are open. You can email me through my DMs. You can shoot me an email through my website, or you can hit me up on my Discord channel. The Discord channel is great because there's other information there, like recommendations for podcasts and books, and also recommendations for civic action that you can take, and great organizations that are already doing great work to try to win the midterms and stop the worst excesses of the Trump administration. So if you're sitting at home being like, I want to help, I don't know what to do, just go over to the Discord. You can check out the threads that are there, or that's just another place where you can get in touch with me and I can steer you in the right direction there. Because the only way that we get through this is if we all work together and we all do the work together. Special shout out to all of my regular patrons and contributors: Robert, Shannon, Carmine, Patrick, Melissa, the two Seans, Dan Blackroyd, Pliff, Lauren, Triska, and It's the Rocketeer. Y'all are the goats. Wacko Mine says, how's the weather on the West Coast today? It's okay. It's a little cold, but it's okay. Average Joe says, how pissed do you get when someone makes the bad faith claim that everyone on the left calls Trump Hitler, knowing full well that you don't have to kill over 10 million people to be a fascist? I get a little annoyed by that, but I also feel a little bit of empathy for people who are very sensitive about those issues. You know, like when you are a Jewish person who has lived through prejudice, or you have family members that died during the Holocaust or whatever, then you can be a little sensitive about that stuff. And, you know, sometimes when people have PTSD from traumatic episodes, it can make you act out in ways that where you don't really see the logic of your own arguments being flawed and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm not trying to be condescending and be like, they just don't see what's actually going on, but you know, it can be difficult if that is the lens by which you are seeing the world. Let's see here. Wacko Mind says, how do you get people to participate in a broken system when it is obviously hurting them? I guess the way that I would do it is by convincing them, if they need convincing, that the way that you fix the broken system is by replacing the people who are currently in charge of the broken system. The system itself is not the thing that makes it a bad system. The thing that makes it a bad system is the people who are currently in charge of the system. Because, yeah, there are inequities in things like the Electoral College and the Senate map and gerrymandering, but the way we fix that is we put people in charge who will fix those things. Assad says, are you right wing? No, I am not. Tu lo ton va con bohem den says, hi, Jarrett. Hello back. Mihu says, I like ice. My drinks are cold. I like ice cream, etc. I mean, that's cold water. Solid water in a solid state is the only form of ice that I like. JP says, you fix an engine by getting your tools and doing the work. Hell yeah. Average Joe says, any participation is better than no participation. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. 100% accurate as... Oh, no. Sorry, my microphone keeps getting disconnected. If not voting worked, it would have worked already. We have terrible voter participation in this country. So we've already tried not voting. Why don't we try voting instead? Let's see here. Torment, I don't know who Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain are. If I'm remembering correctly, that's like far-right anti-immigrant racists, right, Torment? Let's see here. This guy says Trump is an American hero, so that is a block. Because that's not a question. All right. User a bunch of numbers says, do you think Bush Jr. is extremely happy that Trump came along? Yeah, because now we like him. You know, now we're like, he's just a cute old guy who wanted to paint his pictures. You know? Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, everybody, I'm going to start wrapping things up. So I hope that you all have an excellent weekend. Take care of yourselves. If the weekend is when You damn Black Man Hood wants to ask a question. All right, can you put it in the chat, or do you need to say it over the live stream? You need to join. All right, well, so long as it's a quick one, we'll see. This could go real wrong. What's up, buddy?
Yo, what's up, bro?
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm doing okay. What can I do for you?
Okay, so let me ask you this. Okay, so the topic is ask me anything about politics. So my question is, do you think that capitalism is why Jews run the world today?
Oh boy, how do I kick somebody off again? Unfucking believable. And that's why you don't let people on when you don't know who they are. Unfucking believable. Didn't I block this person already? Okay. Yeah, let's go. We gotta make sure that we go ahead and block that fella also. So there we go. Let's see here. Average Joe says, ooh, if I just took a gander at your TikTok feed, you could throw a dart at a printout and there would be a 50% chance of hitting an anti-Muslim or anti-Semitic comment. Was there a lot of that? I didn't see. I don't know if I saw all that stuff, you know? Fletch Lives Again says, what would you tell Trump if he joined this live? I'd just be like, you're pathetic, and everybody's going to be happy when you're dead. All right, everybody. I will see you guys on Monday. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. If the weekend is the time when you do your work, then do the work and be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to other people to do the work. If the weekend is when you take care of yourself, then take care of yourself on the weekend. We're better at our jobs when we do the self-care and rest and relax. I will see you guys on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye.